Well, actually, I'm very happy to be here. It's very good to be here. The Baylan University, and especially BESA, is a long-standing friend and cooperation partner of the Adenauer Stiftung. I heard that some 20 years ago, this cooperation between BESA and the Adenauer Stiftung was established. So my visit is also some kind of back to the roots. I was kind of young then. I'm not so young anymore. But anyway, so if you would ask me how would I see the future of the relations between Israel and Germany, let me start with a true story that is being told, probably a true story about Theodor Herzl. Theodor Herzl was visiting a shtetl, and he was under some significant time pressure. So he was approaching the rabbi and said, well, Rabbi, in one word, how's the situation? And the rabbi answered, good. But he was not really content, so he asked, so if you would have two words, not good. So let us look at what is actually good and what is maybe not so good. And I would like to do that with 6 eyes. Eyes for Israel, actually. And in that eyes you will find challenges and also opportunities. The first eye is interest. More precisely, common interest. Let us be very clear, the Holocaust will forever be there as a part of the relation, and the relation will never be a normal relation. I think this is absolutely clear. Though in the survey that Professor Sharon was pointing out, we found out that there is, of course, a proof for that, but there's also a very interesting new development. The proof is that 42% are saying the relation rests fully on a historical basis. But there is remarkable 33% saying it is based already on common interest. And there's another 19% saying both is applicable. So if you count the 33 and the 19% together, which you could do, you will have a very significant portion of those who would say there is also a common interest as a basis. And I would really agree to what, and it sounds quite similar what we are saying, to what Sharon just said. I think the German historic responsibility vis-à-vis Israel will always be a pillar of the building that is kind of symbolizing the relation. But the question is whether that building will stay stable if we do not build up a second pillar. And I would call that pillar the pillar of mutual fascination, of collaboration, of cooperation, and maybe also of curiousness. What is under that heavy carpet of the conflict? Because there is not enough knowledge about what actually is beyond that. The second eye is innovation. So if we ask what could that common interest be, in our survey, we found out that there is a surprising image when it comes to innovation. A lot of Germans look with a lot of admiration towards Israel. They say it's outstanding, it has an outstanding startup scene, it's a startup country. They see Israel as the best practice model, as one of the most innovative countries, if not the, in this region of the world. But we found the surprising result in our survey that the Israelis have a very similar impression of Germany. We asked in the survey, what do you see as the top of the positive characteristics if you think about Germany? What is the top association? And guess what? 80% said, right on the top, it is innovation. So if mutual admiration is not a good basis, I do not know what a good basis for cooperation is. Scientific cooperation has always been a core of this relation, but I think we should intensify that, maybe in a region that we could call applied science cooperation. So that is something we should do. The third point, and it's already the third, so we are approaching, it's infection, or more precisely, risk of infection. How immune is Germany against a new race of anti-Semitism, also in the light of the so-called new Germans? Refugees coming to Germany. The fight against anti-Semitism will stay the ultimate litmus test, if you will, for the German-Israeli relations. Last year, in the wake of the Operation Protective Edge, there was one phenomenon and one phenomenon we have to fight. And this phenomenon is that anti-Semitism is too often being explained by the policy Israel pursues in the Middle East conflict, combined with the extremely simplistic kitchen sink psychology idea that victims too can become perpetrators. That is one of the classical stereotypes that is behind that. Criticism is of course allowed, but the German Jew Henrik Broder, who is well known to never put things out of, but always in a nutshell, he said, an anti-Semite is a person who condemns Jews for something for which he does not condemn non-Jews. Maybe that's a very simple, but I think a very true definition of what anti-Semitism is, and we have enough patterns of that if it is about Saudi Arabia, Syria, or whatever. And the second thing is, there is this criticism always kind of, some people would say that is the new anti-Semitism. I think this relation between new anti-Semitism and old anti-Semitism is a little bit like a hybrid car. The new anti-Semitism, which is frequently linked to criticism of Israelis' actions, only propels the car across short distances. On the long distance, it must fall back on the traditional machine, and that is the old anti-Semitism directed against the Jewish people. So what would be a good idea to fight this kind of anti-Semitism? I found the wonderful quote of Dan Diener, a very intelligent remark, which he called the Gordian solution. I think a very, very brilliant quote. He said, and maybe some action plan for Germany. He said, on the one hand, we have to fight anti-Semitism as if there were no Arab, Jewish, no Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And on the other hand, to do everything to find a solution to the conflict that is equitable for both sides, as if there was no anti-Semitism. So I think this is an interesting notion. Fourth I is involvement. What role can Germany play in the Middle East? What role does it play? We heard already that 70% have a very high opinion of the Germans, but we also found out that it's quite interesting that also if you name the criticism of the settlements in Germany, this attitude of the Israelis is not changing. So what is behind this popularity of Germany and Israel? We found out in our research that the military cooperation plays a very significant role in that. Somehow the supply of submarines to Israel has already been seen as some kind, at least partial fulfillment of the 2008 promise of Angela Merkel in the Knesset that the security of Israel is part of the German reason of state. And we found out that in focus groups there is a high level of knowledge about these facts. Almost 60% say Germany can play the role of an honest broker in the conflict. Both sides say, Israelis and Palestinians do expect a more active role of Germany in the conflict on both sides, around 60%. Don't get me wrong, this is a tightrope dance for Germany, or as the Greek would say, it's a Dana in present. But the general question in Germany is, and General Wittmann will, I think, subscribe to that, can we stay in the backseat forever? Is Germany in general too reluctant? Like the Economist framed it, the reluctant hegemon. I think there is a slight shift of paradigm in that question, and that was also kind of symbolized in the speech of the Polish Foreign Minister Sikorski, who said, admittedly in the context of Euro crisis, I fear German power less than I'm beginning to fear German inactivity. Of course, we have to see that now in the moment in the wake of the question how much room to maneuver is left in the light of this refugee crisis. So I come to my almost last point. It's isolation. The fifth I is isolation. I see a tendency in Israel, especially after the Arab Spring, and I have to say that I understand this notion. There was the notion, the very well traditional notion, we are on our own. Forget about the Europeans, forget about the West. As I said, it's somehow understandable. There was some naivete on the side of the Europeans. So because there is this kind of isolation, I think BDS and other things, also the labeling, is very counterproductive, because it is playing in the hands of those who are aiming to somehow leave the Western world behind, to forget about the West. If somebody sits in a room and keeps the door shut from the inside, it is not a very clever move to slam the door from the outside. It's better to keep a foot in the door. This puts obligations on both of us, on Israel and Germany. Israel has to clarify whether it wants to be part of the so-called West or not. That is, I think, one of the decisive questions we have to discuss. And on the German side and the European side, we should remember maybe, and this might surprise you because you know that we are near to the Christian Democrats, I would refer to the old social democratic principles of the so-called Ostpolitik in Germany. And there were two very nice German words, Wandel durch Annäherung, change through rapprochement, Politik der kleinen Schritte, politics of the little steps. We have to look for new fields of cooperation between Europe and Israel. I do not agree to the notion of General Amidor to leave to lower the percentage of trade. I think this also leaves out the fact that we have the Horizon 2020 means, and Israel is the only country outside the EU eligible for grants and funds here, and there's a deep relation between the excellence of the universities in Israel and these funds. I think you can't cut off, and you should not cut off Europe. Sixth point is incompetence and incompatibility. What do I mean by that? There is a high amount of superficiality in Germany when it comes to Israel. And let me illustrate that in a very short joke. There's a German sitting in a cafe in Tel Aviv, and he's using a laptop, and another German is passing by. And the other German is saying, "Oh, you are in Israel? I didn't know. When did you come?" "Yesterday." "So what day are you leaving the country again?" "Tomorrow." I said, "Well, that's interesting. And what are you doing here?" "Yes, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book about Israel." "So what is the title of the book?" "The title of the book is Israel, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow." And the joke about the joke is, it is not a joke, actually. I think there is this lack of knowledge. There's a general lack of interest in foreign policy in Germany, in the young generation. With that comes a lack of knowledge. With that comes also what Shimon Stein did call a lack of empathy. And I think that is also a very significant thing. So the second thing is incompatibility. There is two young generations going in two different directions. The young generation in Germany is post-religious, post-nationalistic, post-militaristic. Israel's young generation can and will not be the same. But there are two different paths. So there are only three solutions to fight both problems, to my admission of the situation. It's first encounter, it's second encounter, and it's third encounter. However this cultural rift may be, there is no need to be fatalistic. Even though a lot of people are fed up with this saying that the development of the relations between our countries are a miracle, I would like to refer to the wonderful quote of David Ben-Gurion, I think one of the most wonderful sentences he ever said and has ever been said. "Those who do not believe in miracles are no realists." Let us be realistic, and also in terms of the conflict, but not lose trust in hope in miracles. Thank you. Toda rabba.